Section 17 of the Art of Cookery made plain and easy by Hannah Glasse. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 7 of Puddings. An oat pudding to bake. Of oats decorticated, take 2 pounds, and new milk enough to drown it. 8 ounces of raisins of the sun stoned, an equal quantity of currants neatly picked, a pound of sweet suet finely shred, 6 new-laid eggs well beat, season with nutmeg, beaten ginger and salt. Mix it all well together. It will make a better pudding than rice. To make a calf's foot pudding. Take of calf's feet 1 pound minced very fine, the fat and the brown to be taken out, 1.5 pounds of suet, pick off all the skin and shred it small. 6 eggs, but half the whites, beat them well, the crumb of a halfpenny roll grated, 1 pound of currants clean picked and washed, and rubbed in a cloth. Milk, as much as will moisten it with the eggs, a handful of flour, a little salt, nutmeg and sugar to season it to your taste. Boil it 9 hours with your meat. When it is done, lay it in your dish and pour melted butter over it. It is very good with white wine and sugar in the butter. To make a pith pudding. Take a quantity of the pith of an ox and let it lie all night in water to soak out the blood. The next morning strip it out of the skin and beat it with the back of a spoon in orange water till it is as fine as pap. Then take 3 pints of thick cream and boil in it 2 or 3 blades of mace, a nutmeg quartered, a stick of cinnamon. Then take 1/2 pound of the best Jordan almonds, blanched in cold water, then beat them with a little of the cream, and as it dries, put in more cream. And when they are all beaten, strain the cream from them to the pith. Then take the yolks of 10 eggs, the white of but 2, beat them very well, and put them to the ingredients. Take a spoonful of grated bread, or Naples biscuit, mingle all these together with 1/2 pound of fine sugar, and the marrow of 4 large bones, and a little salt. Fill them in a small ox or hog's guts, or bake in a dish, with a puff paste under it, and round the edges. To make a marrow pudding. Take a quart of cream or milk, and 1/4 pound of Naples biscuit. Put them on the fire in a stew pan, and boil them up. Then take the yolks of 8 eggs, the whites of 4 beat up very fine, a little moist sugar, some marrow chopped. Mix all well together, and put them on the fire. Keep it stirring till it is thick. Then take it off the fire and keep stirring it till it is cold. When it is almost cold, put in a small glass of brandy, 1 of sack, and a spoonful of orange flower water. Then have ready your dish rimmed with puff paste, put your stuff in, sprinkle some currants that have been well washed in cold water and rubbed clean in a cloth, some marrow cut in slices, and some candied lemon, orange and citron cut in shreds, and send it to the oven. 3/4 of an hour will bake it. Send it up hot. A boiled suet pudding. Take a quart of milk, 4 spoonfuls of flour, 1 pound of suet shred small, 4 eggs, 1 spoonful of beaten ginger, a teaspoonful of salt. Mix the eggs and flour with a pint of the milk very thick, and with the seasoning mix in the rest of the milk and suet. Let your batter be pretty thick, and boil it 2 hours. A boiled plum pudding. Take 1 pound of suet cut in little pieces, not too fine, 1 pound of currants and 1 pound of raisins stoned, 8 eggs, half the whites, half a nutmeg grated, and a teaspoonful of beaten ginger, 1 pound of flour, a pint of milk. Beat the eggs first, then half the milk. beat them together, and by degrees stir in the flour, then the suet, spice and fruit, and as much milk as will mix it well together very thick. Boil it 5 hours. A hunting pudding. Take 10 eggs, the whites of 6, and all the yolks, beat them up well with half a pint of cream, 6 spoonfuls of flour, 1 pound of beef suet chopped small, a pound of currants well washed and picked, a pound of jar raisins stoned and chopped small, 2 ounces of candied citron, orange and lemon shred fine, put 2 ounces of fine sugar, a spoonful of rose water, and a glass of brandy, half a nutmeg grated. Mix all well together, tie it up in a cloth, and boil it 4 hours. Be sure to put it in when the water boils, and kept it boiling all the time. Turn it out into a dish, and garnish with powder sugar. A Yorkshire pudding. Take a quart of milk and 5 eggs, beat them up well together, and mix them with flour till it is of a good pancake batter and very smooth. Put in a little salt, some grated nutmeg and ginger. Butter a dripping or frying pan, and put it under a piece of beef or mutton or a loin of veal that is roasting, and then put in your batter, and when the top side is brown, cut it in square pieces and turn it, and then let the underside be brown. Then put it in a hot dish as clean of fat as you can, and send it to table hot. Vermicelli pudding. Take 1/4 pound of vermicelli, and boil it in a pint of milk till it is tender, with a stick of cinnamon. Then take out the cinnamon, and put in half a pint of cream, 1/4 pound of butter melted, 1/4 pound of sugar, with the yolks of 4 eggs well beat. Put it in a dish with or without paste round the rim, and bake it 3/4 of an hour. Or if you like it for variety, you may add half a pound of currants, clean washed and picked, or a handful of marrow chopped fine, or both. A steak pudding. Make a good crust with suet shred fine with flour, and mix it up with cold water. Season it with a little salt, and make a pretty stiff crust, about 2 pounds of suet to 1/4 peck of flour. Let your steaks be either beef or mutton, well seasoned with pepper and salt. Make it up as you do an apple pudding. Tie it in a cloth, and put it into the water boiling. If it be a large pudding, it will take 5 hours. If a small one, 3 hours. This is the best crust for an apple pudding. Pigeons eat well this way. Suet dumplings. Take a pint of milk, 4 eggs, a pound of suet, and a pound of currants, 2 teaspoonfuls of salt, 3 of ginger. First take half the milk, and mix it like a thick batter, then put the eggs and the salt and ginger, then the rest of the milk by degrees, with the suet and currants and flour, to make it like a light paste. When the water boils, make them in rolls as big as a large turkey's egg with a little flour. Then flat them and throw them into boiling water. Move them softly that they do not stick together. Keep the water boiling all the time, and half an hour will boil them. An Oxford pudding. 1/4 pound of biscuit grated, 1/4 pound of currants clean washed and picked, 1/4 pound of suet shred small, half a large spoonful of powder sugar, a very little salt, and some grated nutmeg. Mix all well together, then take 2 yolks of eggs, and make it up in balls as big as a turkey's egg. Fry them in fresh butter of a fine light brown. For sauce, have melted butter and sugar with a little sack or white wine. You must mind to keep the pan shaking about, that they may be all of a fine light brown. All other puddings you have in the Lent chapter. Rules to be observed in making puddings, etc. In boiled puddings, take great care the bag or cloth be very clean, not soapy. but dipped in hot water and well floured. If a bread pudding, tie it loose. If a batter pudding, tie it close, and be sure the water boils when you put the pudding in, and you should move the puddings in the pot now and then, for fear they stick. When you make a batter pudding, first mix the flour well with a little milk, then put in the ingredients by degrees, and it will be smooth and not have lumps. But for a plain batter pudding, the best way is to strain it through a coarse hair sieve, that it may neither have lumps nor the treadles of the eggs. And for all other puddings, strain the eggs when they are beat. If you boil them in wooden bowls or china dishes, butter the inside before you put in your batter. And for all baked puddings, butter the pan or dish before the pudding is put in. End of section 17.